This is the first
Absolute Comics
panel.
Yeah.
Ever.
Huh?
Ever.
Yeah.
And it's a New York Comic Con.
Yeah, you read the first one ever. Well, thank you. So we run the show Absolute Comics. I run a channel called Comicstorian. He runs a channel called ComicPop, and Absolute Comics is the new podcast we made when our former one, The Weekly Poll, kind of all went their separate ways. 5 months later, I hit up Sal, and I was like, dude, I miss it. We need to get back to doing podcasting. He said yes, and we didn't call anyone else. So that's what gets us here today.
Yeah, that's a great, really trim version of the show. I like that.
How we got to where we are now?
Yeah, that's a really good recap.
Every week, for those who don't know, just kind of wandered in here because you're looking for a good place to sit because the con is tiring.
Enjoy yourself.
I don't know about you, Sal, but I haven't done a con walk around for 2 years now.
No.
That was far more exhausting than I thought it was going to be.
Yes.
I have pains and I am a pretty active person and I am really sore.
I hear you. No, I pregame my pain. I built an entertainment center before the show, and the next morning I was like, I'm old. It hurt in places. I'm like, I didn't even use that muscle to make this thing happen. And then we went here, and I'm like, this is a cakewalk.
Yeah.
Just walk 30 miles all day.
Well, so yesterday, me, Andy, and Dan, we got here. We walked around for the equivalent of like 3 miles.
Yeah.
Then we walked to the Nintendo store. Then we walked to the Harry Potter store. Then we realized, while everything was only a mile apart, we did them all back to back, and that was probably about 10 miles of walking around New York City.
That will happen. No, every time I live in Jersey, you live in Colorado, and so you get to come to the city a lot less than I do.
Yes.
But I think we probably visit the city about the same amount of time because I just can't. Every time I come, I'm just like, all the walking.
Every time I come to New York, I'm always like, I'm here, I'm back in New York, and I love the East Coast and everything here. And about a day in, I'm like,
I'm ready to go home.
I don't remember all these smells. I don't remember all these people. I don't.
It's just there's so many people.
Why is there so many hot dogs?
See, no, you can never have too many hot dogs.
I feel like it's a challenge. But anyway, like I was saying at the beginning, and we got derailed, yes, we run a podcast every Tuesday where we sit around and talk about the latest comic book news. We talk about our experiences. We've been in the YouTube, Twitch podcast game now for equivalent of like, I've been in it for about 7 to 8 years. You've been in it.
Same time. Like we got in.
When you were like 3 years old is when you got into it? You started making videos?
When I was a child, when I was a baby. Yes. My father's a time traveler.
Yeah, and you were going to the future and uploading them, talking to yourself on those skits.
No.
But we've been doing this stuff for quite a while now, and we just kicked this one off, and last year was supposed to be our inaugural Absolute Comics panel.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys are aware, a few things happened last year, kept a couple people away from cons.
It was a little busy.
Yeah.
But now we're back.
Yes.
And I'm thrilled because, number one of my favorite cons of all time, New York Comic Con.
Yes, this is the one I always try to make.
Yes, this is the one I never miss. I've been here since the first New York Comic Con happened in 2006, I think it was, and I've never looked back.
I remember my first New York Comic Con was like 2013 or something like that.
Yeah.
I came on a completely different reason. I was working for an MCN in YouTube.
You were, yeah.
Behind the scenes, and I was over here doing nothing, but pretending I was working.
Yeah. That's the life of an MCN.
Oh, hey, microphones are back.
So anyways, you got here for the comics, so we're going to get into it. So here's how the breakdown's going to go. We're going to get a topic from our producer, Dan, who's going to tell us something that's happening in the comic book space. We're going to espouse about it, and then we're going to talk a little bit about getting into the YouTube, Twitch comics sphere, and then we're going to open it up to you guys, because you are what make it possible. If you don't watch the channels, we don't have a job, we don't have anything to do. And I don't want to go back to education, so please keep coming.
You think you got a bad idea about the GameStop? They don't even have a company anymore.
I'm in stock in that company that better deliver.
Are you going to the moon?
So
just like the normal show, I'm going to pull Dan's camera up so he can tell us what the topic is.
Yeah, what's it?
Come on, Dan, your camera's up.
Chris Claremont making X-Men Legends debut in January 2022.
So, okay, for anybody who's been following for a while on the show, Jonathan Hickman's X-Men, Sal convinced me to read it, to get on board, and I was like, this is great, I'm loving it, this is so much fun. And I don't know if you missed the news, but Jonathan Hickman decided he's done with it.
Yeah.
So he left, and my running theory was that he went over to Substack with a bunch of other writers. But there was always that, I've had multiple arguments in my Discord about this, that Jonathan Hickman is coming back. He's going to have a plan. He's going to do more X-Men. He said he'll be back, just gave us no set time or anything at all. If you missed the memo, don't worry. You're not the only one, because everyone did. He did come back to X-Men, everyone.
Oh, yeah.
He's writing an out-of-continuity webtoons on the Marvel.com.
Yes.
And now
Marvel
there's
Unlimited. Marvel Unlimited.
Marvel Unlimited. Well, I'm calling it Webtoons because everyone knows what that is.
I mean, yes.
If I say Marvel Unlimited, no one knows what I'm talking
Well, Marvel
about.
Unlimited is like the Netflix of Marvel Comics, but through that you can get an Infinity comic.
Yes.
And that's basically Webtoons, where it's just a scrolling comic book that never stops. You can read Wolverine go to space. It's fine.
Yeah. Wolverine goes. I mean, it's not bad, and I kind of, on my opinion, this is all just a personal opinion on the situation.
That's what this whole show is going to be, by the way.
Yeah, it's just all opinions. That's what we
Bear
always do. I feel like he just got a little over his head when he had like 30 writers he was trying to corral.
See, I think that he didn't see I think he was so thrilled. I'm going to pull this back a little bit. Maybe that'll make it easier. I think he was so thrilled with the experience, because he's always wanted X-Men. Even when he did the Avengers and the Secret Wars, he really wanted to do X-Men. And they were like, I don't know if you know, but like we don't own that right now. So, like, we're not going to help a rival studio. But now that like they have X-Men, he was like, I want X-Men. I'm really all in on indie, but I want X-Men. So he came back, he does this X-Men thing, and it became this, forgive the reference, but a juggernaut. And he got all these different creators under his belt, and he's just like, and was marveled, again, no pun intended, by how everybody took the ball and ran with it. Like, I'm sure he was like really, really surprised by like what people like Teeny Howard and Cy Spurrier did with this book, Jerry Duggan, for example. Like,
even the Wolverine stuff.
Even the Wolverine book stuff. Like, it's something else, and it went in other directions. And so when he was, I think he had like a 3-act structure for X-Men. And he was like, at the end of Act 1, he's like, okay, now it's going to turn. We're going to destroy all this stuff. And everyone's like, everyone's buying X-Men right now, and we're all having a great time. And I have like ideas that are going to last like 2 or 3 years. And he's like, then why don't I just take a huge check from Substack and go away? Like, here, you guys just play in the sandbox as long as you don't touch these 4 things that he probably wrote down.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, like don't use Apocalypse. Don't destroy Krakoa, and don't explain Moira.
You know, it's sad that in Marvel you have to say, like, don't destroy the mutant island.
Oh my God.
Don't do that.
Because I'm going to do it later. Because it's what we do. If mutants have an island, we are going to blow it up.
Yeah.
No question about that.
Have you seen Genosha?
Yes. So Claremont's coming back. That is like no surprise to me whatsoever, and here's why. Number one, Chris Claremont's a beloved name. He's a beloved creator, and he is synonymous with forward momentum with X-Men. Totally makes sense. Also, he is a proven name and has a track record. I remember we were talking about the Substack departure. There's a mass exodus of creators leaving the big two. They're going to work on their independent projects, and they're basically being given a stipend from this tech company to make their own books, right? It's like, that's awesome, good for you. We'll see you in a year. And while they're gone, Marvel and DC have to like fill the void. And like there was this like fraction of a second where we were like, man, I wonder what independent creators they're gonna pull in to give a spotlight to these. Oh wait, they're just gonna call the people they used to know. They're gonna call people they used to know. So like, Spider-Man, like, okay, cool. They got this great brain trust right now after Spencer, and it's like, yes. And who's gonna do the other backup story? J.M.D. Mateus.
Yeah.
Like, by the way, I love J.M.D. Mateus. I'm 100% okay with that idea, but no new names.
Well, isn't Zeb Wells new?
Zeb Wells is not new. He's been around for a while. I mean, like, at least...
Well, because I said that because I was like, I don't recognize his name. And someone was like, no. He's been around for a while, but no one can tell me what he's been on.
Well, that's fair. But it's like, one of those things where it's like, I'll call like Mark Waid or Jim Zub, and it's like, these are names, these are people who can produce, and they know story structure. Peter David, another one, who's here, by the way. If you don't see him, go find him and get him to sign your stuff. He wrote something you own, I promise. But like, these are names that, like, Peter David's writing the Symbiote Spider-Man book. It's one of the top books of Marvel right now, and it's like, he's been writing Spider-Man for 40 years.
Which tangent, if you haven't been reading Symbiote Spider-Man, it's amazing, and it has this awesome running gag where they always forget what happened.
Right, because it's a retcon book. It all takes place in the past.
Right, so magic, amnesia, you just don't have any idea what happened.
Because otherwise he would reference it at any point in the last
Remember the time I fought the Beyonder?
Remember the time I met Rocket Raccoon twice? But yeah, so because they need some people who are going to get the proverbial asses in seats. They call it Claremont. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
And Claremont, of course, is like thrilled to take the job.
Honestly, I think it's a better plan than what DC's doing right now, where it's just like, how many more books can Joshua Williamson write? Have we tried giving him every DC book?
Right? He's good, by the way. I like Josh.
Yeah.
I'm happy that he's getting them, but yes. But at least Josh has, it'd be one thing if it's like, just give it to Bendis and have him write everything, because he can write like 6 or 7 books at a time. But like, Joshua Williamson at least is dictating the trajectory of DC in the universe. So it's like, oh, okay. Like, you might as well write it because you know where they're all going at the end of it.
That's true. That makes sense.
So, That's cool. Good for Chris. Is he here today? You think? Is anything? Yeah.
He's sitting in the
Chris
back.
Claremont.
He's actually sitting in the back. He's
really
really waiting for us to.
Big shacked. Made you look. Chris would not come to the show. What have I done? This is, and you do this for a living? Good Lord.
Wow, that's a good turn, Sal. Anyway, so.
Have you ever talked to a creator at the con and you're like, hi, I have like 2 million subscribers, and they're like, why?
Anyway. So the X-Men, the book though. So what do you think they're going to do with this X-Men Legends announcement though? I have the thing Dan sent me.
Dan, is there any more information about this besides just like he's getting a book called X-Men Legends?
Not really. They're just like, he's coming back, he's been off X-Men for a very long time.
Yes.
Obviously.
And if you remember the last time he was like, I think one of the last times he was on X-Men, it wasn't like an annual or some kind of centennial. He was doing X-Men Forever, which was his out of continuity, if they didn't take it away from me, here's what I would have done with X-Men series, which of course was canceled.
Yeah.
Shame.
I mean, that lines up with like when they did X-Men 95. Yeah, they were like, everyone loved the animated series, let's do the continuation.
Yes.
And then no one bought it.
By the way, like that was a book back in 95. Like there was X-Men 92, which was the book you're referring to. There's also the X-Men cartoon. But between that, there was a book called X-Men Adventures, which did the exact same thing. And it's like, you know what?
Well, it's kind of like the Young Justice book. Like,
yes.
They made a Young Justice based on the original cartoon, the new cartoon, and then there's actually just Young Justice.
Right, which is not in the main comic.
Which is nothing from the show.
That's not from the show. What is happening? But there was also, there's X-Men, and then there's Batman. Batman: The Adventures Continue.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and they've already done that before.
Yeah, they did that for like hundreds of issues.
Yeah. It'd be like if they redid Smallville again.
Yes. Yeah, Smallville, season 7 or whatever season it was canceled on. I don't know. I didn't watch
Well, they did the comic. Season 11, I think, is the comic continuation.
Okay.
And I think it's got like 300 issues or something stupid. It's like huge. It's a digital, so.
Yes.
But it's still like, there's so much to season 11 if you were to turn this into a show.
Yes. And it wouldn't cost them a fortune because they're at least doing the things that you couldn't do with a regular show.
Right.
You can make him fly, for example. You can have him meet Batman.
He does that.
I know.
And he flies.
These are the things that I know about the Smallville comic book, and only because I've seen covers. I didn't like the show. I didn't want to read the comic. I'm sorry.
I'm very disappointed in you. This may be the last appearance of the Absolute Comics podcast as well.
I'm not losing fans or friends by saying that I didn't really care for Smallville.
You just lost a friend.
I will. All right. The theme song is still fire.
Okay. But anyway, that's typically what our podcast is. We do just the news. Yeah, that's the show. But we're also flagged as here to talk about YouTube and Twitch and getting into the world of comic book YouTubing and Twitch.
Yes. So naturally, you're probably watching this. If you're here to learn more about how this works, you just saw a little sample. You're like, oh, that's all it takes? Cool. Then let me get my phone and I'll begin my career. And it's like, yeah, I mean, like on one hand, that's true. And on the other, it also takes like knowledge of the industry and like some effort. So Betty, kick it off. How did you
Well, the reason we flagged it up as learning how to do it this time is I'm actually in a different situation than I normally am when we do the weekly poll podcast, where we do it live, we talk about a couple things, and we just ask you guys questions. I'm actually teaching 3 other people how to do podcasting right now in general.
Really?
Which has been interesting from my point of view, because I didn't realize how much of a skill set this actually took, as opposed to just getting somebody. So the standard everyone always tells you is that you just need to get on camera and just start talking to people, just like I'm doing right now.
If you watch Kevin Smith, he's very inspiring. He'll go on for hours, but he will say, like, if you have a phone in your pocket, you have a show in your...
You do.
You have a dream. And it's like, yes, but... it was like back in the day, like with webcomics, where it's like, if you have a dream in your heart and a pen in your hand, you could have a career like Bill Watterson. And it's like, no. There are like 1 million of those. And in an ocean of content, like how does yours stand out? And it's like, it takes knowledge. It takes, It doesn't just take the gumption, but it does. Like, you need a little bit of delusion to believe that anyone's going to want to listen to you talk for more than a couple of seconds.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, that's right there. It took us so long to make an actual podcast show way back in the day, because the idea was, what the hell am I going to talk about?
Right. Right. And
I had the entire YouTube channel at the time. We had an entire audience base, and we didn't do any real podcasting outside of the one that Rob had originally assembled.
Yes.
Because I was like, what am I going to talk about? There's something to talk about.
Exactly. I'll have a couple of people pad it out a little bit,
Yeah.
No, and that's one of those things where it's like, it takes a little bit of delusion, but it also takes you need to talk about something you're passionate about.
Right.
Like,
Well, that's number one.
Like, this guy and I could talk about comics in front of anybody or without anybody. We've had shows that were never recorded just because that's how our conversations go. And it's like,
I never thought of them as shows, but yeah.
Right?
Like the pre-show that a lot of people watch on our show, because we normally go live 15 minutes early to give the audience the heads up. Hey, you got the notification, come on in.
Exactly.
We've normally been chatting for like 45 minutes before this about everything else.
Right, and I try like deliberately not to make it about comics, just so that it's like you're not losing actual quote-unquote content.
Right.
But yeah.
But yeah, so like I said, I've been teaching a couple of guys how to do a couple of things. Because recently for this last year, anybody who's been following my channel closely, in order to kind of like to reignite my passion for doing YouTube and content creation, I launched like 1,000,001 projects. And that was intentional. I really did want to have like 1,000,001 projects because, what?
No, you wouldn't want to have 1,000,001.
No, I do though. That's why I did
You
it.
need them. Because I've never known you to be like, so I'm only doing this one thing.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm going to try crocheting. It's going to be cool. Like,
I think I would be badass at crocheting.
I think you would.
We were going down New York, and there was this lady just sitting there crocheting and selling them, and I'm like, that could be my next career.
Yeah, you could be the Demolition Man.
Yeah, what?
Remember the Demolition Man? Remember Sly learns how to crochet?
Yeah, it's when you said that, it didn't dawn on me, and then I remembered, like, and now I'm also remembering the shells and how we never got an explanation. Yeah, the 3 seashells method?
No. You just got to use the 3 seashells.
But anyway, but yeah, so this year in particular, we built an entire podcast network, me and the guy sitting over there, Dan, basically running through Rooster Teeth, doing multiple podcasts, multiple games and stuff like that. And a lot of people want to get into the world of podcasts, and he's right when everyone says just get your phone and talk, but I tried that, and I noticed a few hiccups that come across just jumping in and talking.
Yeah.
So what I did was I launched 2 different channels that do more podcasting, and one about video games and one about doing more TV show stuff with Sal.
Yes.
Absolutely Marvel and DC. But on the video game side, I got a couple buddies who just want to talk about video games. Because what do I do with these guys? They play video games, and we talk about video games. And I noticed a couple hang-ups, and I figured that would be an interesting thing to bring up today.
Okay.
Because the first hang-up I've noticed is talking without an end goal. So, like, if you're going to do a podcast and you're going to talk about something, like Sal and I talking about Chris Claremont, Sal can go all day about Chris Claremont, but if he just talks in circles and doesn't get to a goal,
It's not a show.
right, no one cares about it over. Like, if you need to say something new about every 2 to 3 minutes for someone to be interested in what you're saying, I could say the exact same thing for the next 20 minutes and you guys would all lose interest and half of you would walk out. That'd be the end of that. The other issue that comes into keeping the conversation flowing is figuring out how to think as you're talking.
Right.
Because you can't stop. A nervous tick that I notice with a lot of people trying to get into podcasting is they'll stop and they'll just kind of sort through their mind and they'll slow it down. Or you'll hear, because I did a lot of public speaking in the military beforehand, people will do these nervous ticks in the middle of a speech. They'll be talking and they'll say like and then, and they'll have these little things that allow your brain to catch up.
Yep.
And the actual skill of thinking before you're talking so you can get to a location is what keeps people engaged in what you're saying. And so these are 2 big things that I noticed trying to teach 2 guys, one of which is in YouTube and didn't understand why he had no retention. And for those who don't know, retention in a YouTube channel is I put a video up, it's 10 minutes, and if everyone leaves in a minute, you have to figure out why you didn't keep the viewer. Because here, you would all feel awkward if you just got up and stormed out of here. But on a YouTube video, if you're bored of what I'm saying, you're just going to click away and I'll never even know why. So that is one of the big things, having a flow in the conversation. And that's what a lot of people don't get when they want to get into the world of podcasting. You have to be able to talk about your topic. You have to be knowledgeable in your topic. But you don't actually have to be a topic expert. A lot of people think that you need to be the comic guru.
Right.
And I will tell you right now, for a guy who has a YouTube channel and an entire podcast network that talks about comic books, I am not the most knowledgeable guy that I bring into these things.
No.
At all.
and there's no reason to be. You know, it's not, the point of the show is not to prove you're the smartest or to prove you know the most. It's
right.
to lend your opinion and to share your insight and to have a meaningful discussion or discourse or analysis. And that's the approach. And it's like, as long as you have these tenets in your head about how you're developing your own series, you are certainly on a better track than most.
Yes.
Because most are there because they're like, what they do looks easy. I think I can do that. I have some free time and technology is ubiquitous, so I'll just do it. And it's like, that's not the way to do it. That's not a good motivator, and it's certainly not a good way to start a show.
Yes.
And you'll also find out that, like, you can't get anyone to live your dreams for you. You can't get anyone to work for you. If you want a show, you're going to have to do the show.
That's the other thing too. I mean, I took two people into the show. One guy, he just wanted to get into the world of podcasting, world of video games and stuff like that. The other guy owned a YouTube channel where he did Genshin. And that was what he just talks Genshin, plays Genshin. He wants to do Genshin content. That's what he wants to do.
Listen, you know,
why is there giggling? Genshin Impact is a fun game, and I have some incredible characters on my roster.
It sells well. I would assume there's an audience for that. But
there is an audience. It's a huge audience. Do you know how many people buy into that game?
I don't know how many people subscribe to his show.
Oh, no one subscribes to a show.
Okay, well,
but and the reason no one subscribes to his show is he has it in his head that he needs to be a subject matter expert. He's not focused on keeping the show itself entertaining or getting to a good point or having a nice flow in his discussions. He's trying to make the next big YouTube video without knowing how to make the next big YouTube video. Following trends and trying to be on top of things is important, but if you lose everyone at 1 minute, everyone wants to know how you make money doing YouTube and podcasting. It's holding people into the seats. Doesn't matter if you get 1 million views in a video. If that video is 10 minutes long and you lose everyone at 2 seconds in.
No, you'd much rather have a channel with like only tens of thousands of subscribers that watch like over 1,000 views if you have like close to 90% retention. Like those are astronomical numbers and it'll do very well for you. And that's like a little known secret. It's just like, you don't need to be chasing the brass ring trying to get like, well, I've been doing this for 6 months, I haven't broken 10,000 subs yet, what am I doing wrong? It's like, well, how many people are watching your show? How long are they watching your shows?
Yes.
Are the people who are there dedicated and invested? If they are, you're on the right track. And the trick is being tenacious enough to keep doing it. That's the thing. Like,
well, you got to keep trucking along and learning from your mistakes.
And the thing about that is, like, you need to know when to quit and when not to quit. And that's like a really nuanced question. And it's like, when you're looking at your analytics, and that's going to help you out in a big bad way, if people are clicking off in 1 minute, they're like,
you got to figure out why they're clicking off.
And it's like, is it because they're not looking for your content, or is it because like maybe your sound is really bad, or maybe it's because like the way that your approach is really not engaging? But if it's 1 minute, then it can't be the show; it has to be something else.
Yeah. Well, the way things work, and this goes back to what I was telling these guys, is the way things get monetized across the board and how you get into this industry has nothing to do with your upfront views. It has to do with how many people watch it. It's a term called watch time. If you can get someone to stick around for an entire hour show, that is worth more than 1,000 people watching 1 minute of it.
Right.
Because it just totals in the amount of time spent on that actual video. And that's how a lot of the income is actually warranted with all of this. So going back to what I was telling these guys getting into podcasting, you can't have, as much as you want to think about your thoughts and you want to just stop what you're doing and you want to just kind of sort it all out and then keep going, every time you do that, you're going to lose somebody. Every time that I have to stop right now talking to you guys and sort out my sentence structure so that I can figure it out, because we're doing more of a live show. It's a little bit more unnerving than Sal and I sitting in our chairs in our front of our desks, just not wearing pants, and you guys don't even know. I mean, this is a little different. I got to wear pants today. But the trick with doing this type of an industry is just making sure you can keep people entertained by continually talking.
Exactly.
And by having a co-host, like anybody who's ever watched my private, like when I go do private streams, when I go do my little game streams and it's just me, I get bored 2 hours in because I have nothing to talk about.
Right.
Like I'm sitting there trying to make up stuff. Like I applaud Twitch streamers who stay live for 12 hours talking to themselves. I can't do it.
That takes a special skill, and I don't have it.
No, I've tried. I'm terrible at it. Anybody who watches my streams past 3 hours, it just turns into me looking like a guy just bored playing video games. Like, comics.
You look like the way that most people look when they're playing video games.
Exactly. But that's what I wanted to kind of go over here and explain, because a lot of people want to get into the world of YouTube. A lot of people want to get into the world of podcasting. And it's not too late. The trick really is just figuring out the trends. And if you want to get into Genshin, as an example, because my buddy really wants to get into Genshin, you got to wait for Genshin to be popular. Like right now it is. For the 3 people here who play Genshin, the anniversary's taken off, and everyone's either hating it or loving it. It's all over the place. Now's the time to talk. It's a terrible anniversary. We could have a whole show about that. But what was that?
What is it?
What is the anniversary?
No, what is Genshin?
Oh, it's technically a mobile game, but it's basically Breath of the Wild, but with anime waifu characters. So that's basically what it boils down to.
If you have Pluto TV, you've seen 1,000 commercials of it.
Yeah. But anyway, what I'm getting at here is it really just comes down to the ability, like you just take your phone and you just do it, yes. But you need to develop a skill set. And when I tell everyone who doesn't want to be on camera and doesn't want to be doing this, no matter what you think you want to do, this is where it's inevitably going to have to go. Either in your demeanor, the way you handle yourself, or what you're doing on the show itself. You need to treat it like it's this, even if you never get on stage. I know stage fright is a huge thing for a lot of people.
Totally.
I was forced to get over it in the military when they're like, hey, you're going to teach a class, no one else is here, go. So that's kind of how that one worked out for me.
Yeah, and I remember in the beginning when Benny started Comicstorian, he was a voice, and he has a fabulous voice, as you can tell.
Thank you.
But it was the video was mostly images and your voice, and when you were trying to break into other spaces, I remember one of the big things they were telling you was you got your face on the channel.
Yes.
Because people don't know you, they know your voice, they know the brand, but they don't know who you are. And that was an issue, and it's one of those things where it's like, you got to break through that barrier. You weren't necessarily afraid to show your face, but you were like, but why would I be on camera?
Yeah,
and
no one cares about me talking about Red Hood.
Right, and they were like, but who cares? Like, just and that's when you did those little, like, where you bookended the show. So it was
I would intro and outro that.
Hi, this is me. I'm making the show. All right, see you later. And then you'd go away. But like,
I actually, just funny side note, I stopped doing those because we started doing the podcast so people could see who I was.
Well, the thing is, like, you had, but because of that, you were able to then break into other spaces and people recognized you. And when I say people, I don't mean necessarily the audience, but like producers and sponsors.
Industry
pros.
Yeah.
So that was a really big thing. So, like, but being unafraid, or at least just too afraid to fail, and putting your face on the brand, or getting yourself out there. And knowing that no one else is going to do it for you, and like, it has to be you.
Yeah, you have to do everything yourself from the get-go. What I always tell people is you just got to do it. And I know the slogan is get your phone, just film yourself.
Sure.
But you really do just have to do it. I remember the first time we even did one of these panels.
Yeah.
I was almost having like a meltdown behind the scenes with Sal and our other co-host at the time, Rob. Because I'm like, no one is going to show, and we're expected to present people. Mm-hmm. There's going to be no one at this show. We don't know what we're doing. This is terrible. This is going to be horrible. And then we showed up, and it was one of the earlier New York Comic Cons, and we had a bunch of people there. And it was, but the whole time it was funny because we started it, and the line for the hall was around the corner. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so we didn't see it. So we're walking over to the hall, and we just see
an empty door.
An empty door with no one in it, and they decided to give us one of the biggest rooms, and I'm like, this is terrible. Wow, we just disappointed the entire convention. This isn't going to work at all for us. Mm-hmm. And we got in there, and we sat down, and they brought in like 10 people, and I guess it was the accessibility people?
Yes.
Yeah, and so they brought in like 10 people, and I got up there, and I'm like, all right, guys, well, hey, we're going to do a show for the 10 of you guys. Think it's coming out? Yeah, come on in. We'll get a little closer. We'll start asking questions, and they come over, and they're like, do you want us to let the rest of the people in? And I'm like, what does that mean? And they just start like filling up the entire room for the show. But what I'm saying is you just need to get there and do it. You got to put aside the fear. You got to put aside the expectation of what you think you need to do.
Right.
And just do what you've now deemed your job. And if you want to get into YouTube, you want to get into podcasting, this is what the job is.
Right.
Sitting here, talking, entertaining to the best of your ability. And if people find you entertaining, that's even a bonus. If they don't, and you still want to do this, find an angle. Yeah. Be the guy that everyone hates. I mean, I don't recommend that route.
I would not. But find your niche.
Yeah.
And be the best at that niche. That's like the biggest advice I can give. Is just like be the best at whatever it is that you want to. Like if there's a show that you listen to and you hate it and you wish that like it were better, instead of telling them that it sucks, just make a better show.
Yeah. I laugh at a lot of the comments and they try to tell me how to do my show, and I'm like, okay. Where's your example?
Right. Exactly.
If you can give me an example of a better show, I can take that. I mean,
I'll just steal that and do that. Right?
Let's get use the word steal.
Well, I mean, that's what it is. But yeah, all the other things, of course, like have really good sound. At the end of the day, this is a thing my old drama teacher used to say, the audience will forgive a lot of things. They'll forgive bad sets, bad acting, but the one thing they will never forgive is if they can't hear you. And so if you have bad sound, even if it's like crackly or it's mono or it's in one ear and not the other, like get that squared away as soon as possible. People talk about like spending thousands of dollars on a really nice camera or on a really big like souped up phone or something. No, really good sound. Don't worry so much about the video quality. And and educate yourself. Like we could talk for another 3 hours about how to make the perfect podcast for whatever your niche is. But the trick is,
And all the advice would be invalid, trust me.
Oh yeah, well, it'll be obsolete.
You guys want to make a podcast about crocheting? Okay, so I don't know anything about this. Let's start. So I think it involves.
I just got like a million ideas for that, but like it's. But like that.
Hold on. Give me one idea for a crocheting podcast.
Okay. You mean like the name, or do you mean?
Wait,
like,
give me a name. One tip.
Stitch and Bitches.
All right, coming from our brand soon, Stitch and Mitches, our crocheting podcast.
I like it, but like you have it's maybe like I don't know 45 minutes at max, and you keep it trim.
And we discuss every week our adventures in learning how to crochet. Did you get the cross stitch? I got this great cross stitch.
Exactly. Trust me, there's a million ways to it. But like, do your research and learn as much as you can about how it works, the process by which you do it. Like good sound. What does that mean? I'm not going to tell you. Go find out how good sound. And don't like break the bank. Like don't bankrupt your family.
Oh, that's the
worst. Make a good podcast. Like because the thing is, there's no guarantees. And like at the end of the day, you make the best thing you can, but you're making it for an audience of one, and that audience is you. So it's like if you're proud of it, if you're happy with it, and if you're not trying to like appease some other intangible deity or hero you believe in, like as long as you're not trying to just like get the attention of somebody else or prove it to some hero that doesn't know your name, like the audience is you. Like listen to the show. If you can listen to it yourself and be like and laugh and enjoy it, you're almost there.
Yeah.
Now you gotta make it
up.
listenable so other people will laugh and enjoy it. But yeah, so how are we doing on time? I don't want to.
About halfway. Which is what I was aiming for.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, Benny, any other things you want to mention?
No, that's pretty much the big thing because like, when we agreed to do this panel, we said we're going to do a live episode of Comics, which is what we used to do with Weekly Poll. They said, well, could you do something a little bit more discussing how to get into YouTube and Twitch, which is why any of you who showed up looking at what this is about, we have a little bit of an expertise in this area. We've been doing this for quite a while, and so these are just some of the tips that I've come across. And like I said, I just launched a bunch more podcast channels, not trying to promote them or get everyone to go watch them.
But their names are.
But I brought in a bunch of friends because I just wanted to do more fun things with friends. I've always enjoyed doing things with Sal. And I'm in doing podcasts with your friends, even if you have no intention of making it a big name and you're not going to become huge, it's just a fun thing to do.
Yes.
You're just recording you and your buddies chit-chatting and having a good time and yelling at each other about the latest thing. And for that channel, mostly video games. Like, you're dumb. No, you're dumb.
Yes. No, that is a joy that few will know. Is producing something, making some piece of content with the people you love the most, and putting it out there.
It's a fun hobby that can turn into something if you love what you're doing.
Right. If you are not, like, remember I said, like, you need a little bit of delusion? You can't have, like, this much. You got because you need to be able to know, like, when it's time to quit, when it's time to push it, when it's time to switch. Because, like we split our channel just recently. Like, we have this one channel, ComicPop, and then we split it to ComicPop Returns because of the YouTube algorithm. And I was really against it because I was just like, I'm not dictated by numbers, but, like, we were, and I was being effed. And I'm like, we gotta do something, so we had to diversify. And it was like one of those things that you suggested, like, well before I did it, and you're like, dude, we're doing it, come on.
Yeah, no, we just broke everything off that wasn't complete stories and full stories.
Exactly. So we did that, and like, but I still got the compromise. Like, I wanted to keep everything in-house in one place, but if I want to keep doing all those things, I had to do something. And so it's like you have to be willing to make those changes, even if they're like unpalatable. So.
It's an ever-evolving industry to be a part of, and we've been doing this since before podcasting was popular, and now it's a huge, huge thing. And I'm kind of glad we got involved in it when we did.
Me too. Oh no, 2015 was like the year.
Yeah.
Now we've been hosting for 6 years, but no.
Yeah. We're not good at this at all. We were here when it started. Go being first.
There was something to be said for that. Like, I mentioned webcomics. Like, those 5 webcomics that came out in 2001?
Yeah, they're still around.
Still happening, and you've never heard it more? Like, you had to be there first. Yeah. Sometimes that's the case. But
the webcomics don't want the webtoons.
Yeah, webcomics as well. That's another show. So, do you want to?
Well, I figured we'd do Q&A at this point. Yeah. I'm assuming if you either have questions about our shows, our channels, YouTube, podcasting, anything in general.
Yeah.
You're right over there.
Gentleman on the right. Yes. Well, you.
What is your craziest con experience?
Oh, craziest con.
Craziest con. You go first, because I got to narrow down.
Okay. Okay. One time, maybe 2-3 years ago, 2017, I think it was right after Batman Damned had happened, and we're walking the floor. My whole team and I were just having a good time. We're here at New York Comic Con, and we're walking the floor. We're leaving. So what we like to do is halfway through the show, we'll leave and go to a Italian restaurant that we just found out today is closed forever. And it was a really well-kept secret. I really like that place. But anyway, we were heading to lunch.
Can you tell me where it is right now?
You know what it was? It was Montanaro's Hero Boy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the close forever.
You're going to deny it, make a joke out of it.
Yeah, no, we used to go there. I took you there. We're going there, and I have a reputation for like being acerbic and open about like my opinions about comic books, and so I'm always expecting somebody to donkey punch me when I'm walking through the con. And one day, we're walking through the floor, we're heading to lunch, and this dude yells, "Hey!" And I'm like, here it comes. This guy's gonna kick my ass. I'm gonna turn around, and sure enough...
Always expect that if you do podcasting, because someone will disagree with you and threaten you.
Well, yeah.
And it means nothing, but when you go to a con, suddenly it's like, where is that guy?
Where is that guy? But this dude was like, he looked great. He had like a well-trimmed beard, he was thin and cut, and he had like a leather jacket. I'm like, I would be proud to get my ass kicked by this guy. And he's like, you make that video about Batman Damned? And I'm like, yeah. The one with the puppet in it? I'm like, yeah, that was me and my wife. And he's like, well, I'm Lee Bermejo, and I drew that comic book, and you guys are right on point. And I'm like, oh my God, Lee Bermejo, what the hell are you doing here, man? And he's like, yeah, that was a really great video. It was really insightful. You made some really good points, especially you. And he points at my wife. She's like, ah. He's like, yeah. And we're like, all right, well, thanks. And he's like, all right. And then his people were like, they people, and they were like, dude, what are you doing? Like, leave this guy alone. And then they left, and I was like, that was a crazy experience and one that I will never forget.
So for me, actually, it wasn't at a comic book convention.
Oh, well, that doesn't count.
It does count. It's a con. It's at a con.
Oh, well,
I do a lot of cons.
Oh, that's true. Yes.
So in the early days of YouTube, when I got involved in it, the biggest names around were and some of them. They're still pretty big, but Markiplier, Smosh, Jacksepticeye, PewDiePie. They'd all just gotten big. Yeah. Some of you may know who they are. Some of you you've moved to different YouTubers, stuff like that. So we were in Maker Studios, which became Disney, and they decided that I was going to be the comic book guy for them. So we were a part of that company. So they decided to bring me on stage at a convention called...
PAX, right?
No, VidCon.
Oh, okay.
PAX is also weird, but VidCon's the worst. So, if you don't know what VidCon is, it was a brief experiment, which I think is still being attempted today, in which they kind of get a bunch of beauty vloggers. So we're talking like makeup companies, candy companies, young adult companies, to all come together and try to convince YouTubers to take their product. So if anybody's been watching my channel for years, you can tell how many of those I accepted, because we have done none of those. So, but the company, Maker Studios, decided I needed to arrive at this convention and do networking, because since I run the biggest comic book, I'm going to be the comic book guy for them to talk to. So they decided that they had PewDiePie, Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, and me in one location. So all four of us are going to play some game on this stage. And like we'll promote each other that way. Now, the stage wasn't a stage. It was like an auditorium booth in the middle of the hall. Oh. So there's no exit. And I'm in an area with nothing but 11 to 13-year-old girls who want to freak out about PewDiePie, Markiplier, and Jacksepticeye. Yes. Okay, so we play this game, and they're all screaming at the top of their lungs. And I'm just like, oh boy, and I'm the 30-year-old bearded guy who's here to tell you about Batman. This is going to be great.
Like, ew, mommy, why do you like that?
I don't have a beard then either, so I'm the 30-year-old double chin guy, you know. So they're all freaking out. The game ramps up, okay, and they bring out security to escort us out. Now I'm like, okay, well, no one's here for me. Right. I'm going to duck out. Like, I'm just going to go and let these three get hauled off into wherever you get hauled off to by security when they think you're going to cause a riot. But security decides I'm a part of this. So I'm trying to go away, and I'm getting strong-armed by these big, burly guys being shoved into PewDiePie, Markiplier, and Jacksepticeye, and we're all being pushed around. And we got people tackling us. It's causing like this miniature riot of teeny boppers trying to get to these guys. And I'm just like, I'm fine. If you let me go, I'll slip out.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fine. No one's here for me.
No. But you're part of this now.
Yeah, exactly. And they haul us all the way to the back curtain. They pull the curtain aside. All of these kids are being pushed like out of this area. They continue to push me in the back. Now we're away from everyone, so there's no reason to like kind of haul me around. And I'm like, I'm just going to duck out the side. And they're like, no, you got to come with us. You got to prevent a riot. Now, to get to this little secret area, you have a badge that says that you're super important. I did not have a badge that said I was super important, and I didn't have a staff badge or nothing.
Yeah.
So I'm getting strong arm all the way to the back of this entire thing. And I get to this little like lounge area, and they put me in there. And they're strong, like these two guys are just hauling me in there, and they just drop me there. And I'm sitting here in front of every large YouTuber that's not me, that I don't know any of them. And then they just walk away. And I'm just sitting here like, what the hell? Yeah. And then two other big burly guys come over to me and are like, what are you doing here? You can't be in here. You got to get out of here. So now I'm getting thrown out of the whole thing. So I was there for like maybe 2 seconds, and then they come over, and I got two more hands on my shoulders hauling me in the opposite direction.
Nice.
And no one is standing up for me as to who I am or what I'm doing, and I'm just getting basically thrown around VidCon at this point, until I eventually get thrown out into the main hallway all by myself. And then I get a phone call from our manager at the time. He's like, where did you go? I'm like, I got thrown into the lounge and out of the lounge in about 5 minutes time. I don't even know where I am.
That's awesome.
So that was probably my craziest time.
That would be crazy, yeah. Nice. Ooh.
Yeah.
I didn't get
And then there's also the time that we got to go to the Disney party, and they had Mark Ruffalo there. And I managed to go to Mark Ruffalo, and without thinking about what I was saying, I was like, hey man, you're like the best Hulk, seriously. You're so much better than that other Hulk. You're just a really good Hulk. And he's just like, thank you. And I was like, all right, bye, Mark Ruffalo. And I walked away, and then Dan was with me and spent almost 30 minutes debating if he should, because he went over and said hi to Mark Ruffalo. And then for 30 minutes, all I heard was, oh my God, I should have got an autograph. Can I go get an autograph? Can I go back to him? I don't know. I already said no to him. I don't know if I should go to him and get the autograph now. I don't know what I should do with that.
Yeah.
I believe you, did you go back and get the autograph? I think you did.
Going back for a picture, yes.
Okay, yeah.
All right, so how many more do we have here? Down in front?
In the toga shirt.
Yes.
If you could do anything differently from when you started, what would it be?
Change the name. When we started, we were TV Little House, and the search algorithm really kept us on the like under heel, and we changed it like after we hit 10,000 subs. And what we should have done was deleted the channel, started a new one, created a new name, and started from scratch. But we didn't, and so it kind of
Naming in terms of algorithm will really mess with you if you do something wrong.
Right.
Right now, Comicstorian, I have the two big series, the full stories and the complete stories, and the full stories actually mess the algorithm up in my favor, but it makes it almost impossible to do anything that doesn't say full story on it.
Yeah.
So if I do something that says full story, it does really well. If I do anything else, it doesn't do well unless I put in like Batman dies.
Right. So more organic growth.
Yeah, so naming is like insanely important, and you don't even think about it in the beginning. With the Comicstorian name, I actually intentionally planned that out to have comics as the first word.
Yeah.
So then I just, Comicstorian, like a historian. And then even that, people go, well, what are you a historian for? You're doing all current comics. It's a name. It's just a name. Just go with it.
Yeah, just get it tattooed. Just own it. But yeah. I think those are the good ones. Yeah. Thanks for the question. Anybody else?
Way back.
All right.
I am drinking like gallons over here.
Sorry.
Doing videos and everything like that. Do you think you notice I can make always do it? You know what I mean? Like I can keep doing this and fully believe in creating these videos and doing this and putting the work and effort and everything into it. At what point? I mean, because you would already be doing videos at that point. Do you think where you go, I'm doing this action video drop and I just hit a number, or something like, something like that.
Yeah. So like, at what point did we decide this was going to be like the thing we do? Benny?
For me, it was I had burned out on doing Comicstorian, and I checked the numbers and realized I could hire one employee to kind of lighten my workload and maybe make this like a fun job as opposed to, at the time of starting Comicstorian, I was working 15-hour days. I was making the entirety of the video myself, and then the next day was prepping the next video, and I was on a constant rotation with that. So for me, it was when I turned Comicstorian from being just me into a business And that was when I had just enough money to hire my first editor, who's now my producer. He's been here for like umpteen thousand years, longer than I've been doing the channel at this point.
Yeah.
I can't get rid of him.
I think it was when my income dwarfed what I was making as like a teacher. When I was making like as much. I remember when I was a kid, I had this one comic book store, and it was run by a guy who hated his job and everyone who came in the store. And which is like part of the
I think everyone has that comic book store
That was
story.
your comic book store. And he hit a number where like one day he was selling his comics on the internet, and when his internet sales matched his income at the store, he closed the store the next day. He's like, I made as much as the store, that's the end of it. Like, I don't have to see another person again, I'm over it, and just left. And I was like, that was kind of a similar situation where I'm like, I'm making as much as I was as a teacher, I'm out. And not because I don't like teaching, but I didn't like doing what I was doing. It was not necessarily like, I wasn't like a full-blown English teacher at that job that I was at, and I was like, I just need the excuse.
I remember when you did that too, because you went back as like a substitute for a little while.
Yeah,
Like, that was a
just to
terrible
supplement.
idea.
Yeah, just to do a little bit. I was like,
Yeah.
I gotta keep my toe in the water. But like now it's like, I've been out of teaching for like 6 years more.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Invincible.
So, what about before that? So everyone says, don't judge your own channel until after you've made 100 videos or until you've been out of a year or what have you. But before you make the money, before you get the views, while you're still doing the 100 videos, how do you keep the motivation to stay consistent, to stay on point, to keep it going, to keep the quality level up, etc.?
Right. How do you keep the motivation?
Yeah.
to-
For me, it was the comments. Like, people don't think I still read the comments. I still do. I just can't answer every comment. Because for every negative comment I get, I'll get like one guy being like, "You're terrible. You lost your passion. You don't know what to do." I'll get 3 people who just praise me for the voice, or praise me for the videos, or just say how much they love the story.
Yeah.
And even in the beginning, that was happening. So for me, it was just the constant motivation of like, there's people watching this, there's people that care. And so I want to make the video for them because I know they enjoy it. And that's why sometimes I'll even do videos I know are going to tank. Like I just did The Life is Strange Volume 3.
Yeah.
It's like me and like 5 people that care about the comic series. But I did it because those 5 people are still asking for it. So
Yeah, the community is like so important.
Yeah.
It fuels me to the point where it's like that's the reason I do it now. But
Yeah.
like, in the beginning, when I was just like plunking away and making videos, I just liked the show. Like really, like, I'm my biggest fan, which is the most narcissistic thing I can say. But like and it's really just because of the funny people that I hang out with on a weekly basis. Like I have not missed a week with my best friends in 7 years, and that kind of motivation, you can't buy that. You can't put a price on that. Like Back Issues is a fun show that I love making, and it was when we started, and it was like last week. Like so, make a show you like you know what I mean. That you just like you do it for free. You know, you do it even if no one was watching because like no one is, but like they will. You know.
yeah,
Like
they got to see you're passionate. If
Yeah,
you're
they
passionate
gotta
about it,
see
they'll
it.
see it.
Exactly.
Like Sal and I decided to do Absolute Comics and pick up where the weekly poll left off, the original podcast, because we were having those chats anyway.
yeah.
It was like we just call and chit chat.
Like that was a show.
Yeah, we could. Why aren't we filming this again, man?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
we just like chatting and hanging out. Like for every Tuesday that we have to go to our show, that I'm like, oh my god, it's just such an awkward time. I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. There's 4 of them where I'm like, dude, this is fun. I can't wait to chat it with you again and see what's going on. So
Yeah. So just make the show for you.
yeah,
Yes, in the center.
behind you. Yeah, you.
If you don't mind, this is a two-part.
Okay.
Are you guys planning on making any like exclusive content here later? And part 2, are those going to be on your main channels or other channels?
So the question was, are we making any videos about being at New York Comic Con?
Yes.
And will they be out on YouTube? Answer the first question, yes. We shot a bunch of stuff. And for me, it'll go on our supplemental channel, ComicPop Returns. But I mostly made a lot of crap for like Instagram and TikTok and stuff.
Yeah, Dan and I are going to make a bunch of Instagram and TikTok stuff. I wasn't sure if I'd actually be here. For those who don't know, my wife, she's public about it, but she has an autoimmune disease. So COVID and the pandemic have been like a bigger thing for me to keep track of and make sure what's going on. So I wasn't even sure we were going to be able to attend because I was watching the COVID numbers all the way up. So we didn't plan to film anything just in case. I didn't want to agree to something that involved me like filming and getting it out and all that stuff, and then we just didn't go. So I have no plans for anything bigger than a few TikToks and Instagram stuff.
And that's the thing is that like I've noticed like you'll see them if you go walk around. I don't know, I didn't see them today, but at every convention I go to, I see myself when we started. Like when we were in the beginning of YouTubing. I was like, oh, we'll go to Comic-Con, we'll interview some creators, and we'll go viral because like their comic books sell 100,000 copies, so obviously our views get 100,000 views. The answer is no, that would not happen at all.
Yeah.
In fact, you get like less than 10. But like the experience of filming, but you'll see them everywhere, and it's like we've evolved as a channel from like we started doing those videos where we like sat down, awkward, like, hi, so you're Tom King. Remember
Yeah,
that
now
time
we
you were
chat with
Batman?
them like buddies.
That was awesome. Like that kind of interview. But you learn like how to edit, how to get
I got a
coverage.
story for that. You're gonna love this.
Oh yeah, can't wait.
Oh, go.
Well, hang on, I mean,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I gotta answer this poor man's question, but like, but like we've evolved to the point where it's like we barely like I was talking to Tiffany and I was like, do we even need a camera? Like we have new phones. Can we shoot the whole damn thing on our phones?
Yeah.
We have to carry a damn thing? And we found out yesterday, like, yeah. So cool. Like, so we shot like a bunch of stuff and it's gonna be this little like vlog type thing and that's gonna go on the supplemental channel and it's gonna be really cool. Like, but it'll be as good as anything else that we could have made over the last 7 years. So I think I like it.
People don't realize it before I tell my story, but people don't realize it, and I see this all the time. I literally just was on somebody else's podcast and they asked why these videos aren't doing well.
Yes.
Creator interviews, independent books, and con footage.
Yes.
And con footage will only do well if you're going to go take all the footage of all the half-naked cosplayers.
We did that too, and it didn't. Well, the thing is,
those are the only ones I ever see that succeed.
well,
Everyone else
you've
does.
got to be first. You're gonna have that stuff like done and out like on the same day.
Yes, or you have to have a gimmick like D. Pitty, the guy that was in Deadpool that would mess with everyone at the con.
Yes, but don't do that.
Yeah. But generally, what you would think would do well, because like the fandoms that care about the interviews and the indie books, they don't go to YouTube. That's just what it comes down to.
Yeah,
like
maybe they listen to podcasts.
Yeah, they might listen to a podcast. But so talking about
Tom King.
talking about creator interviews.
Yeah.
So I did some really early ones, like when we first started Comicstorian, and they didn't do well, so we just kind of stopped doing them. But when I finally got to talk to Scott Snyder, like one-on-one, Scott Snyder hit me up to talk about his comic that was coming out at the time. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, so this is a big name, Scott Snyder. I'm going to talk about his latest. I think it was like Death Metal or something at the time. No, DC Metal.
Oh yeah.
Would have been like really early because it
Dark
was like 4 or 5 years ago.
Probably.
And at the time, I had my wall was all my favorite covers to comic books, and so I'm planning this. And I'm like, okay, Scott Snyder, I'm going to do this interview with him. We're going to put it up on a podcast. It's going to be great. Maybe a big name like Scott Snyder will get some traction as opposed to like me interviewing everybody I found on Artist Alley.
Yeah.
So just keep your cool. Try to think of the best. Like, don't act like an excited fan.
Right.
Don't get all overzealous. And he gets on the Skype call with us at the time. We were still using Skype back then. And he gets on the Skype call. And I almost immediately, he's like, oh, hey, how's it going, Benny? I watch your channel. I'm like, oh, it's so nice to meet you, Scott. I've been a fan for quite a while. And without even thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, look at all your comics I have on the wall. Like right here, I got one signed by you. And I got it. It like instantly went fanboy. And now we're at a point where like it doesn't even faze me. We just chat with half of these creators because we're talking with them so often.
Yeah.
But you always have that first fanboy moment.
Oh,
This one you signed, and I get this one you look like a Capullo. It's so great.
and like they appreciate it to some degree, but you want to really keep like you want to try.
You want to be professional. That was not professional at all. You know?
Yeah. By the way, if we run out of time, because I think we have 10 minutes left.
Yeah, he gave us a sign.
But I was not paying attention. I saw it when he was leaving, and I was like, is that 10 minutes? Oh my god. We will, when we're done, we can talk to you over there.
Yeah, we'll just head over there, chat, and finish any questions before we head off to the next thing.
But let's not miss any. So any other questions? I'm sorry. Yes, the front row.
So a lot of people, times when people come to con and everything, they get to go to Artist Alley, they get to meet guests, the autograph booths and everything. In your con experience, what's been like your favorite, whether creator, character moment, actor, anything like that, meet and greet?
Oh man, it's a great question. What's your favorite con interaction with a creator or celebrity?
I went to Joshua Williamson to ask if I could do Birthright. And I said, I run this channel called Comicstorian. And I was like, hey, I run this channel called Comicstorian, and I narrate comic books, and I would like to do Birthright 1 through 3, but I want your permission. And he basically, in so many polite words, said, no, tell them to go buy the comic, thank you, go away. And then I brought that up to him years later, assuming Joshua Williamson hated my guts. Only to find out his publisher was standing behind him, and he just had to get me out of there at the moment. But he loves what I do and wanted me to do it.
There's so many now. I'm so blessed because despite my critical nature, a lot of these creators have thick skin and they're really funny, and they, as long as they make fun of me, I'm happy to accept it. And so they've been very friendly with me. And, those experiences are timeless. But just recently, Daniel Warren Johnson's here. I just talked to him downstairs, and he was we had a really fun conversation about making videos and talking about making podcasts and stuff like that. And while we're talking, you can see he was he's like, we're gonna talk for at least a couple minutes. I see you're holding Wonder Woman Dead Earth. Why don't you give me that? And he draws this freaking image of Wonder Woman with a whiteout pen, and he's dabbing all these I'm like. He's when we're talking with people, and I'm just oh my God, look at him creating art right now. That was really cool. That was just 2 hours ago.
That's his favorite moment, 2 hours ago.
But there's so many
there's been so many interesting things that stuff that's happened and things. It's hard to keep track of them all because we come to cons because they're just fun in general, and we do have a lot of unique interactions just because of who we are, which makes it fun.
Behind him, yes.
Yeah, and I think on the right was the last one we'll take after him.
Doing a live discussion on a comic storyline or event, what's the format that you follow? Is it talk about the plot, then talk about character analysis and likes and dislikes at the end, or just go?
So what's our format when it comes to creating or making a video about a story? In our case, we're all over the place. It's not scripted, so it's just whatever. I try sometimes, with our Onslaught video. I was I really want to talk about the history and where the publisher was at that time, but that's a lot. That was a lot more work, I hate to admit, than I normally put into the show. I'll read the book, I'll try to get some tidbits information, but it's an organic conversation between three people, so it's it just goes all over the place. But I have tried to do something as you described, where it's plot, scripting, writing, or art, and then distribution or something like that. But it never happens like that. And it's thankfully, because the audience likes it, I've gotten away with not doing it like that. But I think a format is a good idea.
Yeah.
Then you have
I mean, we just take we
just do the story.
We read the story, we cut out what we consider to be the filler.
Yes.
Which is sometimes hard because sometimes the filler we really want to keep in because it's well, this was the emotional beat and this was the funny beat. But if we do the whole story, it keeps people from wanting to buy the comic.
Right.
So we try not to do all that. So
exactly.
For us, it's a tough game to decide how much is too much and how much is too little.
Yeah.
Because you got to make sure you get all the important beats in. But that's how we recap the storylines.
Right. Right. And because art is subjective, you don't even know what's important.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. Especially when you're doing these are 3 issues and the next set isn't out yet.
Right.
And that character we chopped out of filler, he turned out to be the villain in issue 5.
Yes. Yes.
We've had a few of those. And we'll take the last question. The orange shirt, I believe you had your arm up.
How do you figure out the duration for the videos? So different shows have different runtimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do we figure out how long every episode is going to be? When it comes to Absolute Comics, the podcast that we produce for the panel that you're watching right now, we tend to try to hit a target of about a little over an hour.
Yep.
Because. And it could be analytics, but I think it's just that's the shows I listen to. We know podcasts are usually about an hour.
Yeah.
Right? That's about as much time as people are willing to give us. So let's keep it an hour. Sometimes if we go over, it's because of an event or because someone feels really passionate about something. But it's usually around that. But there's no algorithmic line.
But so for the sake of the channel, I try to do 20 to 30 minutes because then when we do the full stories, they turn into these 2-3 hour videos, exactly. And that's what we're aiming for. Because in the world of YouTube, everything is gauged on watch time. Views don't matter, and it's all about how many minutes you've got watched. So the more minutes you can get watched, that's where the actual income comes from. Mm-hmm. So that's why, and it's not just us. That's why a lot of your favorite podcasts are an hour. That's why a lot of your favorite shows hit an hour. Everything hits that hour marker because it's just a solid number to get thrown into that watch time algorithm.
And it doesn't like confuse your audience, because even though you've got the algorithm, you also have the audience to consider, and the audience is like, if the audience sees that the episode's like 2 hours and 45 minutes, I would say that's too long.
Yeah.
Now,
and that's just it,
well,
because people,
like,
even though they've cut the cord, they're trained on hour-long shows.
Yes.
Nobody really watches a 3-hour episode of Game of Thrones, especially in the last season. So, so that's just what it comes down to. You want that hour, and then when I try to make the other shows, I try to angle them what other people are used to. 20 to 30 minutes is a normal show.
Yes.
So that's what I always aim for. Although now we're in a world where the trick is 60-second videos. So,
which, like, you will encounter an ever-moving goalpost of situations where they're like, well, we like really short videos. Well, now we like really long videos.
Yeah.
Well, now we like mid-range. Well, now can you make them 60 seconds or less? Like, oh, come on. Like,
Yeah.
You have to make a different channel for every different type of content they're like preferring.
And then to make matters even worse, especially with the algorithms, if your successful show, for me, is the 3-hour full story, if I don't make 3-hour videos, YouTube goes, oh, well, they don't want to watch that.
Yep.
So you got to keep everything that's why you have the shows titled a certain way, and they all got to stay around that same length.
Yeah.
So that the algorithm will find them and get them all good to go. And we are now being told we have 1 minute left, so we are going to close out. We'll step over there if you guys have any questions you didn't get asked, or if you did want to get any photos or anything like that, we'll get that, but we'll wrap up right here. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I hope we were informative. I hope you learned something about YouTube and Twitch, and we answered some of our goofy questions for you.
Yes.
Anybody who wanted to get the podium shot, you might want to run up real quick. I know someone wanted that.
Thank you all so much for coming.